The kingdom of God is like a world where a man and a wife lived together very happily, but it was a very bright world and a very light world. Everything was absolutely fine, everything was absolutely marvellous, except one day the man and the woman thought about it and they think this, if we don't want this light will give me a headache. It's a struggle. I could really do with a pair of sunglasses. So the man and his wife began to wear sunglasses. So they still lived in the light but in the glare, but it was less glary, shall we say. And then they found, rather than wearing sunglasses all the time, they built a little wall, just enough, to lean against, so they could sit on the ground the far side of the wall, and they would be in the shade, and they could make up their minds to do that, and felt it was more comfortable and more restful to do that, and so they sat on the ground. But the thing is, as life goes on, this man and this woman, they had children, and their children had children, and their children had children. And so it was that the wall just wasn't big enough to shelter all of their offspring from, and their offspring's offspring from, the glare of the light that's coming from behind them. So they built the wall higher. And of course, the more generations they were, they built the wall wider. And they built it up, and they built it up until eventually it was as high as a house. Eventually it went all the way around the world. And it was lovely, and it cast a mighty shade the far side, which was cooler and more shadier, and they lived in the shade on the other side. Difficulty here, of course, is that they kept, their eyesight's not that good. So, working in the shade and the semi-darkness, they began to knock into each other. They touched each other. They got other people's diseases and sicknesses in them. They so many people. There weren't easy choices to make anymore about who you spend your life with, and bad decisions made bad results. And relationships begin to break down, and we can't see what's going on half the time, and life becomes so complicated we can't see what causes anything anymore, and it's a huge muddle, and we keep knocking into disused farm implements that are rusty and cutting ourselves and damaging ourselves. And one day a hand appeared, a huge hand, over the top of the wall, holding a little seed between the thumb and the index finger of this hand, and the hand came down inside the wall and just pushed the seed into the ground, and the hand went back, and the seed grew into a man, and the man grew up and began to walk in the dark world just like everybody else, but actually became a darn nuisance because he kept telling everybody not to look and be so careful about where they're going, but to look up. Look up, look up, look up to the top of the wall, because of the light behind it is so far-reaching. You can see the glow of the light over the top of the wall. Look up there and follow where that little bit of light comes to, and eventually, because that meant, the trouble is that once people started to see the light, they began to see that they weren't necessarily doing the right thing, going the wrong way. And so they got so cross with this man that they killed him. The way they did that, having threatened and decided to do it, a hand descended over the wall again, holding in its between its fingers a cross, which it pushed down into the soil, up against the inside of the wall on the dark side. Yeah, and they nailed him to this cross, and they killed him, and he died. And then the hand appeared again over the top of the wall, and it came down, and the fingers hooked around the crossbeams of the cross, plucked it out of the ground, and pushed it back through the wall. So now we have can see the kingdom of God is actually a hole in that big wall. The wall hasn't gone away, it's still there, but there's a hole in it shaped like a cross, where the cross went through. And it remains that the light shines through that cross into the shadowy dark world, and it lies on the ground. And what is so easy and obvious and happy for a kingdom walker to do is just to say to other people, come and stand in this light on the ground. Come and stand. Come and stand. And receive all that has come through the cross to us. So the kingdom walker knows what that light is. He knows what it consists of. He knows what it can do to people because he's learnt it. So then what he does is he invites people to come and stand in that light. And of course, when we pass from this life, when we die, whatever term you like, all we have to do is to take a step forwards through that cross-shaped hole. That's what dying is. Just stepping forward back into the light from which we came in the first place. Bless you to that picture of the kingdom of God and our role in it today. Amen.